Hi students, this is Miss Anna. We're going to talk about creative nonfiction and painting the picture within creative nonfiction. We're going to talk about that. We're going to look at one of my writings from when I was a little bit older than you guys. I was 17, I was in university. It's a creative nonfiction piece. I won a prize! I won $25 with it. But that aside, I still think it's a good piece of writing. We'll just look at that and look at some of the ways that I used detail or language to paint the picture. But before that, I have a special treat for you.
Let's get down to business to defeat the Hunt. Did they send me daughters when I asked for sons? You're the saddest bunch I've ever met, but you can bet before we're through, Mr. I'll make a man out of you.
So, this piece is called Reading Aloud on Eternity's Doorstep. I attached it with your weekly email, so have a click and read along with. Alright, so we're going to talk about painting the picture. And what that means is, how do you make this story come alive? Or how does the author make a nonfiction world come alive for his readers? Even if it's a real world, he may not, or they may not, be familiar enough with it to really just get away with the barest facts. They need something to flesh out this world. And in doing so, the author not only, of course, reveals bits and pieces of himself, well, primarily he does. He reveals bits and pieces of himself because often he shows, okay, how do I feel about this situation? How do I feel about this place? That said, let's quickly go through and look at some moments where detail is used to make the picture come alive. Alright, so let's look at paragraph 1. This is, recently I heard Dad's rich voice roughen and drip with emotion. My grandfather had dropped into a coma early that morning. I could hear the muffled sounds of the hospital around us, the clatter of dinner pans, nurses alert, and the constant hacking cough from across the hall. Dad and I sat on a stiff couch, watching my grandfather. He was still except for the steady heaving of his chest. Alright, so the place that we are in is a hospital, and because of where the speaker is, she or he, she, can only really hear what is going on around her, and she mentions specifically what she hears. In painting the picture, the author should be in tune with his or her senses, though whatever one they rely on most, of course, will be where the details are coming from. However, the choice of details we've got are the clatter of dinner pans, nurses alert, the constant hacking cough from across the hall. The stiff couch gives us a sense of the room we are in. Obviously, none of us really go to the hospital to have fun. That detail of the stiff couch really brings to us what the experience of these people are. It is not comfortable. Okay. As a writer, I use a lot of metaphorical language in my writing, or figurative language. So we see that a little bit in the first sentence. I heard my dad's rich voice roughen and drip with emotion. Obviously, emotion doesn't quite drip like honey, but in this case, I am likening the emotion to something that would drip, and the voice is changing to roughening and dripping. So, yes, metaphorical language also paints the picture. Alright. Paragraph 3. As a child, nightly reading was a part of life. We would sit around the table after dinner and Dad would read aloud. My brother and I would watch the flame of a single candle and listen. Stories from books, memoirs, and Dad's own life came alive. Just beyond the circle of light, I could almost see dim faces watching, listening to their history told again. The specific detail here is the flame of a single candle, and just beyond the circle of light, I could almost see dim faces watching. That's kind of an interesting thing there, that last sentence, because it is definitely imaginative. It is trying to make a point. It's not really metaphorical language, but the detail of the circle of light thrown off by that single candle gives us a sense of the place of this person's childhood. Alright, paragraph 4. You guys remember Captain Frank from the conversation with my dad. Let's see. Paragraph 6. As the years passed, I realized that I wanted to become a storyteller in my own right. Skipping on to the end of that paragraph, my old life of farm chores and bulging bookshelves seemed to have no continuity with the kinetoscope called college. So the farm chores and bulging bookshelves again kind of paints the picture of the childhood, likening college to a kinetoscope. I think I've misidentified this term. It is it's a kaleidoscope, not a kinetoscope. It's a kaleidoscope is what I meant. So, it's like that thing you look through at Christmas time, you twist it and everything changes. One little change makes everything different. Paragraph 7. Paragraph 8, not a lot there. Paragraph 9. Okay, more metaphorical language, but still connects to the real life, non-fictional details that the speaker sees. Looking at the end, so this is the paragraph that starts, "A week after I called my family, my grandfather died." At the very end, Papa Bear's body was still on the bed. He looked like a large ivory tortoise, strangely twisted within his shell. My grandfather's mouth gently drooped open. Death had suddenly engulfed him and carried him out into a peaceful sea. So the idea of the metaphorical language is that the body looks like a tortoise twisted within his shell. The verb twisted gives us a sense that something's not quite right. If we change the twisted for something else, such as, he looked like a large ivory tortoise, gently resting within his shell, that doesn't quite have the sense of what has just happened before this, that this grandfather has died. My grandfather's mouth gently drooped open. Death had suddenly engulfed him and carried him out into a peaceful sea. So the detail of the drooping open implies peace, which the final sentence, continuing to build on the idea of a tortoise, which is a sea-bound animal. Oh no, actually it isn't, because tortoises are land-bound. But anyway, the idea of a turtle or a tortoise being carried out into a sea. But for him, it is a gentle process. Death is likened to a wave. Death had suddenly engulfed him and carried him out into a peaceful sea. So painting the picture is also based on metaphorical language as well as detail. A couple of you may be listening and thinking, but Miss Anna, you're using ly words. What's with that? All I've got to say is, at the point I was writing this, ly words were still my friends. Now I have become fickle. I have moved on to a different view of how to write. Okay. That night I was numb. I calmly hugged my father, joked with nurses, and made small talk with the technicians. I could only think, I am so glad that I'm here in Mississippi, so glad that I could spend these last few weeks with Papa Bear, so glad that I could read the Bible aloud with my father at the doorstep of eternity. Alright. So the choices here are all about the actions that the speaker is making, hugging, joking, making small talk with the people who inhabit this world of the hospital, the nurses and the technicians. Meanwhile, she is thinking, some internal thoughts. I'm so glad that I'm here in Mississippi. So glad I could spend these last few weeks. So glad that I could read at the doorstep of eternity. Picture. But ultimately, everything that paints the picture is about listening to your senses. If you are the writer, what do you see? What do you touch? What do you taste? What do you smell? What do you hear? All of those senses give details that then the speaker can describe. So your question is to look back at this writing that we looked at and mention another way, another sense that is either explicitly stated or implied that the speaker was drawing upon to paint the picture. Okay guys,